Engagement leads to productivity. Productivity leads to revenue. Revenue leads to, hey, a company's still in business. That is what HR is supposed to be.
Bam! Jason Waller here, True Underdog Podcast. For all the underdogs out there, I have got somebody special for you guys to meet. She is badass. She's out in Cali, and she's not your normal HR type person. You know, most of those HR personalities, you think of Mike Wazowski, we're watching you type monsters, attitude and personality. Nope, Katrina Ghazarian here, CEO of Gameday HR, the host of HR Sucks podcast. She's a game changer. She's got personality. She's got swag and confidence. How you doing, Katrina?
Oh, cut it out. That was the best bio ever.
I don't know about that.
I'm doing great now. Swag, hey, so I love that.
Swag, everybody, look, I'm wearing a Macho Man shirt. See, I'm trying to get some WWE swag. You know, the late Macho Man. It's purple. It's Thursday.
I watched wrestling when I growing up. I'm like a huge fan. That's how I fell in love with The Rock, was watching him
is that your favorite?
He's my favorite. He's my, of all people I want to work with, it used to be Kobe Bryant, RIP. But The Rock and Drake are like my two dream business partners.
I love Drake. I do like The Rock. I mean, I don't like that, you know, he talks about his political stance publicly. I hate when people do that when they're famous and they want to say that. I don't like that, but I love what he's about. I love how he's overcome everything, and he's definitely the showstopper in wrestling. I do love Drake, though. He's the showstopper in hip hop. Like, his videos are unreal. Even the one with Bieber, and I'm not a Bieber fan, that's pretty sick. Like, that's a cool video.
He's just so, you know what's funny? The Rock, I was watching, I want to say it was one of the last Fast Furious movies that he was in. And I was watching it, and I was so captivated by the fact that I was like, The Rock doesn't even act. He doesn't even act. He's literally getting paid $20 million to be himself. And I, in that moment, decided that's going to be me. I'm going to be paid $20 million to just be myself. I don't have to act like anybody or do anything. So he's like my motive. This is why I love him, because I feel like this motherfucker makes all this money not even having to act. He doesn't even have to act.
I know. He's good. And look, he was good wrestling. I remember when he was coming up, and I was a big Hulk Hogan fan, and then Ultimate Warrior fan, and then Bret Hart fan, and then The Rock. And so when The Rock had to fight Hogan, it was tough for me. And then I quit watching wrestling when Rock left. And then when he came back, I watched it again, and then he left again. And so you're right.
How he gets you.
He just changes everything. He's so, I don't know, his energy just brings everything, elevates everything. So I agree. And that motherfucker makes a lot of money per movie too, but he earns it. He's good.
He does. And now he's producing them, right? So he gets like with his ex-wife, he gets back end and front end revenue for it. And then Drake, I love Drake because of his versatility. I mean, he does whatever. If he feels like singing, he'll sing. If he feels like dancing, he'll dance. Like, I am always inspired by people who are themselves, and they just don't care. They don't care what anybody else thinks. They don't also, I know Drake has like those tracks where those diss tracks that he's made, or, but I think now he's kind of over that. I think he's moved on from caring about what other people are doing or saying about him. But to me, that's what inspiration was. And I feel like that's something I always want to emulate. Like, I just want to be myself and inspire people to be themselves, not act like me or you, right? Like, be yourself. Don't try to emulate my life.
Well said, Katrina. And when we first connected really on LinkedIn, one of the things I thought that really attracted me to want to have you on the show and kind of collaborate was you said funniest in fifth grade, voted funniest in fifth grade. That just made me giggle when I saw your profile. I was like, that's hilarious, right? So that's just your personality and you being you. And so I'm super excited to see, to share your story here on the True Underdog episode and talk about things that you've overcome to be yourself and really where you're established now. So, you're so driven and your attitude is strong. And I love that because a lot of people either have it or they don't. And like you said, they either take things as motivation and they don't get in the weeds to worry about what people say, they can be themselves, or they don't. Where do you get that from as a child? Because you mentioned to me before we got started, you used to get made fun of called Barbarian Ghazarian, which is your last name, because you were a little bigger. But what was those some of the things, or what things as a child motivated you to really elevate your life and be yourself and be confident in yourself. Because as a female, I've got 3 daughters. I'm here to tell you, it's hard for women. It's hard for girls to be secure. So to talk to, to see females overcome that I love that. I love when they're super confident and they have charisma and they have, they're ready to take on the world. And I think that you show that. Where did that come from?
Yeah. It's funny. The barbarian thing, actually, I wasn't heavy, but I was just like a truck, like I was taller. I was into sports. I was kind of a bully in a way, like physically roughing up people for fun, not to, make their lives miserable. But so that's where I got it from, was I was like bigger, taller, kind of more muscular even than a lot of the boys. And I think for me, I didn't have parental guidance growing up. I didn't have like anybody telling me, this is how you should be, this is what you should do. And although, like it wasn't a great childhood, I think for me, not having that served its purpose because I just created my own identity. There was nobody to tell me like, you shouldn't beat up boys. Like there was no one to tell me, you shouldn't. I used to like ruffle up my hair on purpose to try to make people laugh, like in my class. I was always trying to make people laugh because it made me feel good to see other people smile. And probably, lack of attention from parents, maybe I was seeking it. So I think not having anybody tell me who I had to be or put me in this box of what a little girl is supposed to be, fragile, delicate, likes pink. Like I wasn't any of that shit. And I just owned it. I didn't care. I at a very young age, I realized I'm going to be me. There's no one here that's going to stop me from being me. And then I went on my way in life. But then adulthood comes, right? And so whereas when you're a kid, all these adults are telling you how you're supposed to be, then you become an adult and there's people at work and people in your life who are telling you how you're supposed to be. So then it was like, it's a constant overcoming, right? Even I'm sure you, wherever you are in your life right now, I'm sure you struggle with it. I'm sure people like try to come to you and say like, hey, maybe like you shouldn't say those things or you shouldn't be that way. And I feel like people
all the time. I get that shit all the time.
All the time. And it's the thing is, it's not linear, right? You don't just overcome it and you overcome it forever. It's a constant nurture, right? It's a constant going back to who you are, remembering who you are. So I think for me, when I became an adult, I reclused. I started getting into corporate world. I was working in banking, and then it was like, you can't say those things. You shouldn't do those things. And so I thought, okay, I have to grow up, right?
Right.
Like, this is how I'm supposed to be. And so there was definitely a period where I lost myself. I wasn't saying the things that nobody else was saying, which is something I really pride myself on. I say the things no one else wants to say. And not necessarily from a position of like hate or judgment, but just, like, you know what, Jayson? You're kind of annoying. I love you, but you're a little annoying when you say these things. In fact, it makes you look insecure. Like, let's dig on that. Let's unpack that for a bit, because I'm your friend and I care about you. And I want to see if we can bring resolution to this problem. So
you don't sugarcoat things. And I think
do
people
not
know where you
sugarcoat.
stand, which is important.
I think the thing that we missed out on is truth is love. Mm-hmm. If you love someone, you have to tell them the truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I've been in situations where someone, like, oh, I'm getting fat. And I'm like, yeah. Mm-hmm. And they're like, they're offended. I'm like, wait, hold on. You said it. You said it. And I'm agreeing with, like, you have put on weight. I didn't say you're ugly. I didn't say you're lazy. I didn't say you're stupid. These things are not mutually exclusive. You can put on weight, right, and still be an amazing person. But the thing is, you came to me, you grabbed your belly fat, and you said, I'm putting on some weight. I'm getting fat. And I simply agreed. How are you mad at me for that? That doesn't make any sense. But that's the truth, right? Now, what service would I be providing if I said, no, you're not gaining weight. That's just not the truth. Why would I lie? So So for me, it's the truth is love. If I love you, I'm going to tell you the truth. Now, if I don't know you and I'm just like spouting things off, like your purple shirt is stupid. Look at that guy. Look at that guy with his purple shirt. He just wants all the attention, everybody. Like, that's not love. Right. That's just you being an asshole. There's a difference.
That's being a hater. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and I like that you can really separate the two, because the world today, and I want to talk about you being HR too, because that's a big deal. And, you know, my company's got over 1,700 employees, but I have fired and hired thousands in my career. And what I've seen recently, the last few years in today's world, is people feel entitled and they're scared of the truth. And so you're right. You got to be honest. You're not doing a good job, or that does look like shit. You've got to be honest. It helps people get to the next point. But a lot of these people can't handle it. What advice would you give to these people that can't handle the truth anymore when you're just trying to provide that to them?
I always go back to, what are the goals?
Yeah.
Like, what are your goals working here? And if their goals are like, I just want to collect a paycheck, I'm like, okay, well, you can do that somewhere else, right? Because you're not, at this point, we're not going to have a company because your work is so bad. So go somewhere else and collect a paycheck doing something that you are actually good at, or that, you know, is easier than. Because if you want to be here, if your goals are to promote, to advance, to make more money, to work in your passion, then you have to provide high quality work. And so that's the conversation today that we're seeing in HR, is empathy. Everybody wants to talk about empathy. And first of all, what is that? Does any, like, when I ask people, when they say, yes, you have to have an empathetic culture, I'm like, can you define empathy for me? Like, what does that mean?
I have no idea how to define. I didn't finish high school or college, so I have no fucking clue. But I know, I think it means you got to feel bad for somebody. Am I right? Or coddle them. That's what I think of.
That's what people are, that's the misconception, right? Is that empathy is coddling and accepting excuses. No, empathy is putting yourself in their shoes, and recognizing, I understand like where you're coming from. However, like, I have these expectations. And so, you know, with COVID and 2020, a lot of things happened. Parents were in hospitals, kids couldn't go to school. Totally get it. We're dealing with things like distractions that we've never really had to deal with before. And so if you come to me, Jayson, and you're like, hey, my dad's in the hospital and I know you're working on something that needs to be done, I will say, okay, go address that issue. It's your family first, always, right? Go be with your dad. Let me know when you plan to come back, or let me know if you can get that project done. And if you're like, I can't do it, fine, let's find someone else to get on it and do it. But if you say, I can do it, and then it still doesn't get done, is that my fault? Or is that you for setting the wrong expectations when I gave you the opportunity to like give it up? That is what empathy is go deal with your shit, but communicate with me. It's not accepting excuses. It's not accepting poor performance. That's not what empathy is, but we seem to want to throw that and shove that down company leaders' throats because of it. I want to have an organization when you come back from, you know, taking care of your family. So I still need the work to be done. Just tell me if you can do it or not. Plain and simple.
Straight to the point and setting the expectations early. I like that. HR usually has a bad taste. Now, we recently, and I think I can say this, if not, but
it's okay. You can come to me after. We'll help you. We'll help you get out of it.
There we go. We recently, a few months ago, transitioned from an HR department that was really negative, that people were scared to go to, that it felt like it was, oh, you're going to HR. It was not exciting. It wasn't part of the recruiting. They didn't love the culture. And this has been a most career, you know, any job I've had, corporate America, First Union, Verizon Wireless, usually HR's had this mystique of, I did the noise, you know, the lady on Monsters Inc., she's like, we'll be watching you, like with the glasses and the Mike Wazowski. That's what it reminds me of. It's like, ooh. And we actually had some people that worked that acted and sounded like that on and off. You know, we've funneled through some HR directors. We've got someone now that is super positive, loves to recruit, loves what he does. It's just a different culture in there now. Explain why the perception is that, and how did you, with your personality, get into HR and be able to come out of that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There's like these huge overlying philosophies that are erroneous in HR. And one of the philosophies is you can't be friends with anybody. Mm-hmm. We're the opposite. I'm friends with everyone. Like, you cannot keep me from connecting with people. It just won't work. And so when I started my HR career, I was in sports, and then I went into recruiting. Mm-hmm. And then I had a child, and so I needed like something a little more steady. Sports sometimes doesn't pay very well. And so I got into HR recruiting, and I really just adopted that coaching philosophy, because all the other shit, like, you can Google, right? You can Google labor laws. You can Google what documents you need. Like, you can find that very easily. There's not a lot of value there. The value with HR should be people, passionate about people. When I got into my HR career, I just wanted everybody to succeed. Every single person. How are you going to know what they need if you don't talk to them? How are you going to know what they need if you don't know them? If you don't know what their goals are, if you don't know what their family situation is, if you don't know how their day is going. And so for me, it was more about getting to know the people and then creating initiatives around that data of what they would like, what makes them tick, what keeps them motivated. How do I get the best performance out of every single one? And it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It's a customized plan for each one. And so what an HR department where they've isolated, they've siloed themselves, right? Because now leadership doesn't take them serious because they don't know enough about business. They don't know profit and loss. They don't know data. They make these decisions because they read an article on LinkedIn. They don't know their people. And so they're just like in this bubble by themselves, throwing shit at the wall and seeing what's going to work and what won't work. And that's very costly, time consuming. It upsets people. You create a toxic culture. And so I think with HR, what I would love to see moving forward and what we're trying to do is we want to change that narrative. We're trying to disrupt the industry. It's not like, don't be friends and, you're not a judge. Like you're not like some unbiased party. You're there to make sure everybody is happy, satisfied, engaged, right? Engagement leads to productivity. Productivity leads to revenue. Revenue leads to, hey, a company's still in business. That is what HR is supposed to be. And I think that when you look at HR professionals, it's like they fell into HR. Nobody had dreams as a little girl or boy to be in HR. It just kind of happens, right? And so what I think there is a disconnect between their passion and purpose. So they're in HR because they kind of fell in it. Maybe they were good at some aspects of it, and so they just did it. Every company needs HR. There's always like a ton of positions available. It's like accounting, right? Yeah. And so what's happening is there's a disconnect between, their passion and feeling purpose in their work. And so it's very simple. It's if you're in HR, if you have a passion for people, you want people to be happy, you want people to be better, that's your connection. Now work like it. Find joy in that. Find joy in helping people, find their own passion and purpose in an organization. Be the person that could even say, you know what, Jayson, you're not happy here. We can tell. And so I'm going to let you go. So you can go find what makes you happy. It doesn't have to always be a negative experience. So HR is only called when it's negative. How do we get HR to be a part of the positive experience? I think that's something companies and HR departments alike need to figure out.
Well, I can tell you for years, and I explained it, we struggled with that. It recently changed because our culture is amazing. Like everybody's part of the movement. Everybody's excited because my goal is as CEO and our executive team's goal is to make sure we have a lucrative transaction or go public where all of the employees can have a life-changing event. So we're literally building this company. It's our company. All the employees take ownership in it. And our culture is amazing. And this is my third company I've done this. So I have always been guilty of HR is like the law, like, okay, that's only the bad stuff. And then after our growth and all the culture is fantastic in most of the departments, we can always get better. But I mean, that's the one thing people are like, dude, the culture is fantastic. Everybody loves each other. Everyone's excited. Everybody's doing their job. But HR wasn't. And so when I had this vision, and I wish we'd have talked to you a while back, I said, man, they got to be excited. They got to be doing all the contests, all the Employee of the Month awards in the different departments we have, all of the recruiting, and get excited about the job fairs and about the training and be involved in some of our company picnics and holiday parties. And all of a sudden, when we brought someone else on and we had that whole revamp, just like you said, it became fun. Now people are friends with HR. They don't think of, oh, that they go there. Hey, what other openings are in the company? And they get excited. When's our company picnic happening? Are we going to have a potluck this weekend? Different things that I think people listening to this that either own their business or in HR or, are a part of a team of HR should really hear you saying that. And we're proof of when you change the culture and the perception of HR, things completely change, right?
Mm-hmm. The culture is HR's philosophies, right? So if you have an HR department whose philosophies are what I previously spoke about, you can't be friends with anybody. We're here to lay down the law. We're here to enforce. We're here to terminate and do paperwork. That's the culture of your organization, right? HR is one of the few, with the exception of maybe payroll, whether that's in accounting or HR. HR is one of the only departments that get to touch every single person in the organization on a regular basis. And so HR has a huge opportunity then, right? It can go really south or it can go up. And right. I don't think that HR is taking the opportunity, or leadership is maybe also, I think it's a dance, right? Some leadership doesn't take HR serious, and then HR don't take HR serious. No, and so right. when you have those two things happening, of course, 59% of your workforce is going to be disengaged. Can you imagine? Right. Can you imagine 59% being disengaged? That's the global average.
We would shut down our company. We have it. Let me ask you how you feel about this. I have a motto at my company, an 80-20 rule. I challenge every one of my directors to terminate 20% of their staff every month. And I do that because we want to grow. And I'm a big believer, it's my third business, that 20% of people's team does 80% of the work. The next 60% do the other 20%. And then that bottom 20% is there just for a paycheck. And we like to speed that process up. If I wanted to be UPS or the post office or,
Amazon,
Fry's. Yeah. Well, no, Amazon's growing like this. Any company that's flatline, right, that doesn't have growth, then I'm all about retention. And we are about retention for that top 20%. And then some of the middle. But that bottom, I'm a big believer people have a shelf life. They expire. And you got to get rid of them before they do that. And so when we put KPIs that are always evolving out there. Your score is your score. You can't get around that. And whatever position you're, whether you're customer service, how are the quality calls? How many calls are you taking? Are you making people happy? You're in sales, you're in installations. Everybody can be accountable to KPIs. And so my belief, which has helped me grow this business substantially and the culture, is that bottom 20%. Now it's not 20 every month. It could be 10% this month for this department, 30 next month, but they're making decisions based on the KPIs. And then, hey, is this person salvageable? Do they have the right attitude? Do they want this and it's just a training issue, or are they just negative? It's just a paycheck. We need to move on. So it empowers and makes them do that. So our HR team's busy, but they understand that that's how we grow our company, because it allows us to grow like a rocket ship, because we're always bringing in new blood that's excited. How do you feel about that?
I have no problems with that, right? So my philosophy is I also believe in the 80-20 rule, not necessarily in the way you've executed it, but 80-20 rule in whatever decisions you make as a company has to be good for at least for the 80%. The other 20% are just going to be gravely unhappy no matter what you do. Right. Yeah. And so when we try to create programs and incentives and initiatives and all of that, and we're trying to build it around the exceptions, right? The 20% that's going to have a complaint, no one's going to be happy. So in your case, what you're doing, as long as you have a concrete training program and you understand that training is not the issue, and there's a way to measure that training is not the issue, as long as you're measuring their attitude against your core values, like it's a very consistent measurement, instead of, because our unconscious bias could get in the way sometimes of who we think has a good attitude and who doesn't. And so as long as you have the measurement process in place of here are our core values, does this person emulate all 5 of them? And then there may be, they just need a little extra training. That means that person has the right attitude. And number 3, you're consistent. That you have to consistently do it then. There's a million different ways to get to success, as you probably know. The key to that, if figuring out what that way is consistency. It's like dieting and exercise, right? It doesn't matter what diet you really follow. It doesn't matter if it's keto or whatever bullshit's out there. As long as you're consistent with it, you'll lose the weight, but you have to be consistent. The problem is we're trying something on for a month and we think we're not getting results. And so we go on to the next one and the next one and the next one. So as long as you're consistent, and this is advice for every person ever with doing anything in their life, you have to be consistent with whatever you're doing. Pick a program, pick a policy, pick a procedure, and just stick to it and be consistent with it at least for a year. And then the following year, we can see what works, where can we refine it and go from there. But the problem with people is adherence. They don't have the discipline to adhere to anything these days.
You're right. Amen to that. So, okay, I want to talk about, that's enough of the HR stuff. I want to talk about your podcast, right?
Okay.
And I want to talk about how did you get started in a podcast and what do you love about it?
I've always been the voice of whatever community or everything I've ever done from when I was a child. I always believed that my superpower was my voice. And this goes back to, I don't know how personal you want this to get, or like Dr. Phil,
Personal as you want to make it. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
When I told you I was not in a parental situation where I was being watched. I had a babysitter. It was not a great house either. There was a little boy. He was a year older than me. I was 10. He was 11. And he confided in me that he was being molested by like a family friend, a male who takes their dads. Of course, their dads aren't in their life because that's what predators do. And so he was picking up these boys, taking them to his house for the weekend and buying them things and doing all these like fun things with them. And so he confided in me. I was 10 years old and I reported it. Even though I knew he would be mad at me because he didn't want me to tell anybody, I just knew that it was wrong. And so I reported it. And so that was, I just realized this over the last couple of years of, wow, that was tremendous pressure for a 10-year-old to report something that their best friend is telling them, knowing that their friend was going to be so upset, And so I always believed that my voice was my superpower. And that carried on through high school, where I was reading the morning announcements from freshman year to senior year. I was emceeing all the rallies. That was just who I was. And so the podcast was just another outlet for me to use that superpower to say the things that are not being said, to seek the truth, to have these conversations with people and spread that message. The podcast was just the most appropriate way. Instagram, I know you follow me. It's too hard. Like Instagram is not... People want to have like these deep conversations about these deep-rooted, complex, racial issues and political issues. Social media is not the place to have those conversations. They're too complex. There's too much context. You're just kind of like spouting shit off and you're not really gaining any traction on it. Nobody's really watching, They don't really see that because everybody's doing it. A podcast is where we can have some real conversations. Right? You're getting your side. You're getting my side. You and I just had a conversation before this. Like, we don't necessarily politically agree on everything.
But you're in California and I'm in, Michigan, North Carolina, Florida, so maybe it's a little different by culture there. But I grew up in Arizona. And you're right. We were able to talk politics, which I'm okay with talking that too. I've shared with people before who I voted for and why. And I love that your podcast, you're able to talk about those things because social media, I've got, your daughter's 8, you said. I've got a 22-year-old daughter, a 17-year-old daughter, a 13-year-old daughter, and a 10-year-old son. And I'm here to tell you, social media destroys kids. Their feelings are hurt. They feel less than. So when they see racial injustice or mocking people or putting people down or whatever is out there on social media, it just destroys them and they can't handle it. And I just, you were talking about Twitter, blocking Trump. I mean, they should block all this stupid shit that affects kids. Have you seen that? What is it? Social Dilemma. Have you seen that movie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have.
I mean, that's legit. Like, that stuff has to stop. And I don't know what's going to bend and what's going to break. But, I'm running a company. I can always only say so much. I mean, trust me, there's been times I'm handcuffed and I'm like, man, if I wasn't the face of this, man, I would scream from the mountaintops of what I believe and think that is going on. But I grew up in the West Coast and then lived in the South. And so I've seen racism on all aspects. I mean, the South is racist. Both ends. Some of my best friends are African-American and white. And when I went there in 95, it was the weirdest thing I ever saw. I talked about it in a podcast before. I grew up in Phoenix where most of my friends were Hispanic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And those were most of my friends. Like that's who I hung out with because where I lived, And when I moved to North Carolina, there was no Hispanic kids. It was all African-American or white. And when I sat down at the lunchroom table for the first time when I first moved to North Carolina, you had black kids and black teachers at one table. I shit you not. This is in 94 and whites at the other. And get this. You would think, oh, I'm white, I'm good. The whites were so damn redneck, I didn't know what the hell they were saying. They had like Chewbacca in their mouth. They're wearing boots and overalls. I can't make this shit up. And then the blacks didn't really like me because I was white. Like I didn't fit in. I had to hang out with people from the trailer park that were from all kinds of different ethnicities. And we all became boys. One was from LA. One was from Mobile, Alabama. One was from Miami. One was from New York. And we all just it was like that. And it evolved and got better. How in HR have you seen the issues go back and forth? Does social affect anybody's jobs in there that you've seen or what they put on social media?
I think it does. I think that's the thing with social media is you do expose yourself, like your opinions. And so I think where companies have not caught up yet is, and we have episodes on this, it's why are we not talking about politics in the workplace? All of these people are talking about it outside of the workplace. They're posting about it. They're talking about it. Like, why would we not address the issues here in the workplace? Now, we don't have to talk about who you're voting for or who you're voting for or this and that. But we can talk about, like, what are your fears with this administration winning or this administration winning? And how are we as a company going to support regardless of whatever happens? So there's like that false philosophy or like we're not evolving in the workplace or as an HR department of it's literally in handbooks. You cannot talk about politics, right? It's in handbooks. It's in writing that why would we not catch up? Why would we not catch up to what's actually happening in the world? So where we're talking about racism, we're also, we're combining or we are gathering or grouping racism with administration. So why would we not talk about it? Yeah. So I just think that, the message that we're trying to get out there is you have to talk about it at work. You have to talk about it. Like, you have to see how are people feeling. And then that way, if I'm like low key following you on social media, we work together and I can see you're like posting all these things that I don't necessarily agree with. That's going to cause a strain between yours and I working relationship if we can't talk about it.
I agree. And I think as long as people are honest, because most of the employees or followers know where I stand, but I'm not a hardcore right-headed bigot type Republican. I have a theory, right? Let's talk a little politics. I have a theory that older Republicans are like bigots and so far extreme and they don't get it and they don't understand, love is for anybody, whether you're gay or you're not gay. They don't understand. They're out of sync on everything, right? Mm-hmm. And the younger Republicans are more right center, right? I don't care if you love elephants and you want to marry an elephant. I don't give a shit. I believe that I have gay friends. my 13-year-old supports the LGBT community. Like she's part of that group. Like I love all people. So it doesn't affect me and I'm a Republican, right? So you got to evolve. My problem is the older Democrats, they're more left center and the younger Democrats are so extreme and, protesting and hating. They almost create or believe the stuff that's being said out there all the time where it's creating more hatred. So I wish the older Republicans and the younger Democrats can get on a boat and just go somewhere. And then you would take the younger Republicans and the older Democrats and find peace. Because I believe in a lot of the policies on both sides. I totally understand and agree with a lot of the things. And, one of the things so where do you stand on that before I ask you the next question, actually?
I'm always, at the end of the day, like, I wish there wasn't a spectrum. I wish there wasn't
either. Yeah.
I wish there wasn't like left or right or
there was a middle that's like in between, because that's where it would be for me, right? I'm not far right. I'm not far left. I'm kind of in that maybe right center, right in the middle. If they had this middle thing, that would make more sense.
And that's why I voted libertarian. This is the first time I'm saying it publicly. I voted
I got one ding.
Yeah. So, and don't get me wrong. It's not that I agreed with everything she wanted to do. She's kind of kooky too, right? But as far as like where I stood on most issues, it was like the most aligned, right? And when I say the most, it's like 60% compared to like a 40% and a 30%. It was very close.
The problem is we always know libertarians won't win because of the funding behind the right and the left, which is just wrong. I almost wish they'd arm wrestle for it because they put each other through so much mud. It's just crazy. And I told my daughter, my 22-year-old gets nervous every election. She always freaks out, right? The 12, the 16, and this one. Like, oh my gosh, the world going to end. No, look, it doesn't matter who's in office. I believe in our people, whether they're a Republican or Democrat. Everybody wants to say some stuff. Everybody wants to throw shade. Everybody wants to complain and bitch. But eventually, we're all good people and it works out. That's why we're all still here. That's why this works. So everything's fine. There were people that were super pissed and thought the world was ending when Trump came in. There's people that are super pissed and think the world's ending Biden's coming in. The world ain't going to end, guys. That's not what's going to happen. This is part of our democracy and we all got to get more comfortable with change sometimes. That's what this is about.
And what we're not bringing, the thing is we're putting so much emphasis fighting the wrong battles, right? If you are familiar with Dave Portner from Barstool, have you seen what he's done?
He is
$23
amazing.
million for small businesses. Like, why are we not talking about that? Why are our elected officials not addressing the fact that this man had to go do this and get funding for these small businesses because you all want to have a pissing match? Like, why are we, so if that's not a testament, what Dave has been able to accomplish, and shout out to him. I love you. Like, you're amazing. Like, I cry, like, watching those videos. Have you seen them?
I've seen some of them. It's amazing.
I am like amazing. In tears every time. I had to stop watching them. But if that doesn't like bring anything to light, that the fact that the government is not going to really help us, like the government is not going to save America or make America great again or whatever it is, whatever vision you have for America. My point is the government is not going to do that. So why are we putting all our energy and our voice and all of that behind them?
And the money spent, we could save so many lives if we didn't spend $300 million on a campaign. It's so wasteful. Next question. Now, this is my belief. Okay. I believe if we paid cops, teachers, firemen, ambulance, and enlisted military, the same as dentists, lawyers, and doctors, and we gave them a little bit more education to do that and a little bit more requirements, I believe the entire universe in the United States would change. You would have, because right now, people that become teachers, they love it because the pay's not great, and we lose great teachers because the pay's not great. So if we had higher pay, our youth is learning more, and you got people who want to educate, but now they can afford to live a good life as well. We've taken that from them because all teachers, public, private, they're paid shit, and it's wrong. You go to cops, they're paid shit. So there's a lot of good cops out there, but there's also some bad ones too that got bullied or abused or picked on in school and they're power tripping or race, whatever their issues are. It's because it's like, oh, I got nothing. I guess I'll be a cop. it's because it's like a lower than. Well, they're out trying to protect us every day and establish, a safe area for our families. They should be compensated higher, and they should have a little bit more education and training because of it. A dentist that's working on teeth, or a doctor or a lawyer, like, it's the same kind of concept. And then enlisted military, they're paid shit. Well, I'm a failure in life, I'm going to go be an enlisted and put my life on the line in another country. Firemen, all of that. If we were to get rid of if we were to get rid of the post office and let all that be public, and we didn't have 25 people to pull permits and inspections when I decided to run electrical at my house, we were to shave all that shit down, and we were to increase all the pay that I just said, I think our country would be game changing. What do you think?
Well, my first instinct is it would strengthen the middle class, at least, right? Which is a dying class at this point. If there was, I was very much hit by the last financial crisis in 2008. I was working in banking. So a lot of white collar was hit with banking, mortgages, residential, and all of that. So we didn't see like a huge wealth, like a huge growth in the wealth gap for that one, because those people were already educated for the most part, could find a job, maybe not get paid what they were getting paid, but have a good, easy time finding a job. Now with the pandemic and what's going on, the poor are getting poorer. The depressed are getting more depressed. The obese are getting more obese. Like, the blue collared worker, the poverty, people living in poverty who just generally don't have a lot of resources are getting slammed even more. And so my first feeling of that like proponent would be, at least we would have a middle class, because right now we don't. The only difference this time around than it was last time is, number one, I don't have any debt. I made sure not to get into any debt, from 12 years ago. Number two, I'm not in the lower class. Right. I'm not, I think maybe back then I was making like 40,000 at 21 years old. It wasn't a ton of money, but it was a good amount for a 21-year-old. Now I'm not there. Right now I have the if I need therapy, I can pay for it. If I need to buy a Peloton, I can buy one and work out. Like, I have all the resources, but all these people don't, and it's getting worse and it's getting worse. So I love that idea for the sense of, we're going to create more middle-class jobs that the lower class will have access to.
Yeah. Well, it's a good perspective. And I didn't think of it that way, but you're right. That does create a middle class. I thought of it, the people that are impacting us, everybody, our kids in school, the police out there, firemen, like the military. These are the people that are affecting our lives every day. And it becomes a thankless job sometimes for all of them. Just like in HR, I wanted to mention that sometimes that's a thankless job. So it's inspiring and exciting to see someone like yourself that makes the whole HR realm really what it should be. Exciting, great culture, motivating, making friends. That needs to be shared so many more times out there.
We say bad words.
Yeah, you're like, fuck, shit, I don't care. I get it. I dig it. And I like it.
Well,
it's
that's
not
the human. That's the human part. It's human. Like, we're forgetting the fact that it's not robot resources, right?
Oh, that's funny.
It's human resources. Like, as a human, the way I am, like, it's consistent. So if you hired me and I say bad words, well, do you think I'm just going to not slip one once in a while at work? And if I do, are you going to fire me for that? Like, are you, because it says here in the handbook, come on. Like, what happens?
I don't
to
think
the
our
human
handbook
part?
has foul language. I don't think it offends anybody, because I'm in meetings like, what the fuck are you doing? And I'm the CEO. So I can tell you right now,
well, no one can
that's
fire
not the
you.
case. Yeah, they're not going to hurt my feelings, and it's fine. If you don't like it, mute your ears, because I'm pissed, and you got to feel it. You're right, it's human. So, the biggest message today: how can they find you on your podcast? How can they follow you? Because I think you're inspirational. I think you're positive, and I think you're doing a great thing out there, sharing your voice. So, how can folks find you and follow you?
Well, first, thank you for those words. And the feeling is mutual. I think I first read about you in Inc. magazine, and I kind of tracked you down on LinkedIn. I'm very strategic with who I connect with, and I just want to be in the arena with people who are the movers and shakers, the people who are going to continue to bleach their hair because that's who they are and they like it.
And wear Macho Man shirts. See,
there you go.
Macho Man.
So thank you for that. And I think I feel the same way. My podcast is hrsuckspodcast.com, or you can search HR Sucks on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. Shows come out every week. We've got some great guests coming on this month and the next
I get to
month.
come on soon, right? Tomorrow?
Yes, I think it's tomorrow. Yeah. And
maybe I'll wear the Hulkamania shirt if you're lucky. I got to do this one.
Yeah, you should do that.
I have a rock shirt too. It says "Just Bring It," so we'll see.
No, you have to wear the rock because that's my guy.
That's right. Yeah.
And you can find me on Instagram at Kat Ghazarian, or LinkedIn. I'm probably most active on LinkedIn. You could search my name, Katrina Ghazarian. I'm the only one in the world, so you should be able to find it.
Hey, your LinkedIn game's pretty good too. My Twitter game sucks, but I don't do my LinkedIn or social anymore. If it's written like shit and it doesn't make sense, I did it.
It was
if
you.
It's not, it was the companies that I hire, the team I have in our marketing, because you can tell you're like, oh yeah, that douche, he wrote that, because it's all missing words and
That's
entrepreneur
hilarious.
is spelt wrong, right? And I had someone message me last night like, hey, what are the posts there? You know, I hate to be a stickler, but you misspelled some words. I'm like, no, that was fucking me. My bad.
Yeah, as long as you're not paying anybody for the misspelled words. I mean,
No.
my LinkedIn, it's funny because the headline was really just me making fun of other people, because people try to fit so much in their headline, and it's like all these like words and then maybe like some publications, but I'm like, I still don't know what you do. Like, you're doing yourself a disservice, because LinkedIn, you're supposed to like know what you do for a living. And so I feel like reading your headline, if I still don't know what you do, whether that's like a CEO or whatever, like, what is the point? So the voted funniest in 5th grade was more of like an ode to making fun of people who really try to cram all their accolades in this headline. And so I was even like hesitant about putting the Forbes on there, because I'm like, I spent all this time making fun of these douchebags, and I'm going to over here put Forbes, top social media influencer.
You got to do that though. You have to do that. You have to build your
did
brand.
it. Yeah. I did it. And then the CEO, I think before I had CEO of a company with actual employees. So, because you know how many people rock the CEO title? I'm like, no. You're self-employed. Like, if you don't have employees, you are self-employed. You're not a CEO.
That's so funny.
So, it's just me being an asshole, and it worked. I think people, that's my personality though. Like, I am going, I say the things and do the things that other people don't want to say or do.
I think that's why you've got a good following. I think people that hear this show will know that, wow, she's fun, she's cool, she's charismatic, she's herself, she's raw, she says bad words. I think you're doing a great job. And for all the underdogs out there, here's somebody who didn't have any role models as a child. Mm-hmm. Saw some unfortunate situations, found out you had a voice, became that voice in school, started, we didn't talk about your coaching career, but you coached basketball, right? And that kind of gave you, I'm believing, some motivational tips and skills to rally teams. And then you're into the banking thing, the market takes a shit. And then you find out, hey, I've got a voice. You get into HR. You're doing well there. You start this podcast, and you have a whole different personality and what HR should be. And you're right. It needs to be shared out there, because it's been a game changer for us to change that philosophy in that department. And I think people need to know that. More importantly, I think the biggest message you shared today is for people to be themselves, not be scared to be themselves. And you've done a good job of that, Kat.
Thanks, Jayson.
Can I say Kat or Katrina? Kat, okay?
You can call me whatever you want.
As long as it's to your face, right? That's what I say.
As long
You
as
can call me fucker, ass, Jayson. As long as you say it to my face, we're clear.
I have a joke. It's like, you can call me a bitch. You can call me fat. You can call me stupid. But if you say I'm not funny, I will die.
Oh, there you go. See, that's great. Well, you are funny, and I appreciate our time together. And guys, make sure you check her out. And that's a wrap here at True Underdog Podcast. Bam! That concludes another episode here on True Underdog. If you're interested in hearing more, make sure you subscribe at iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the YouTube channel. You can always visit TrueUnderdog.com, subscribe to all of them. Make sure you check out our newest episodes coming out on Mondays and Thursdays. True Underdog, baby. Bam!